Before we get underway, thank you to those who commented Abraham Lincoln in the previous Canadiens video. That was your keyword. If you want a chance to be featured in the next one, then stay tuned to the end for the comment of the day for that opportunity. But when it comes to this topic, now I know what you're thinking. I'm as confused as you are about this topic, and I don't really know if it's fair to label things the way I have, but because YOLO, we're doing it. So let's talk today about the Habs and how they might have actually screwed up, how they might have put themselves in a bind that could result in some pretty bad penalties if things don't go the way they need it to from here. Because we're talking a lot about the roster today and how exactly the Montreal Canadiens' overall organization is structured. If you go over to the cap-friendly page of the Montreal Canadiens, let's go do that. I didn't have this pulled up before I started this video, but let's just do that right now. The Habs have a projected cap hit right now of $82.6 million, meaning that they're about $1.1 million over the salary cap. Now, everybody's kind of known this, that the Canadiens are in a weird spot with their money because they had so much money to spend at the start of the offseason. They've spent it, and now they're in a spot where they kind of need to pull back. It's why people have been talking about trading guys like, for example, Paul Byron, who's making $3.4 million. Jordan Weal is making $1.4 million. Arturi Lehkonen is over here making a significant amount of money. Same with Yoel Armia. So there are a few players on this roster, especially up front, where people are like, just trade away one of these guys, get a pick back or whatever, and you'll be fine. You'll free yourself from those cap salary woes. Well, let's go over onto an article here on NHLTradeRumors.me where they talk about what exactly is going on here and what exactly could happen if this actually doesn't work out. Take a look at this article. The Montreal Canadiens will not be compliant for the salary cap in time for this season opener. Now, this article was posted earlier today. Full disclosure, I'm recording this the night of January 3rd. So between now and the time this video is uploading, if Marc Bergevin makes a trade, if they send out money, then okay, this video is rendered useless. But with the salary cap being frozen at $81.5 million for the foreseeable future, many NHL teams have had difficulties being compliant. The Canadiens have announced that their salary cap issues will not be settled in time for the start of the season. GM Marc Bergevin has stated that trading players is often difficult in normal circumstances, but is almost impossible given the quarantine issues between Canadian and American teams. Furthermore, Arpon Basu reports that it will not be possible to start the season with a 23-man roster due to salary cap issues. Management instead plans to bank cap space over the course of the season by sending down waiver-exempt players on off days. This may pose severe consequences if players are sidelined by the virus. So from this little piece, it appears that the Canadiens' plan heading into the 2021 season is when we have days that the Canadiens aren't playing or when they're not practicing or whatever, they'll take a look at some of the guys who don't have waivers and they'll send them down to the AHL. Either that or just sending them over to the taxi squad where players on the squad make AHL salary regardless. So depending on who actually gets on there, it could be really weird if you're taking a look at who exactly you want to have in your last few spots up front. And this is a problem. And the reason it's a problem is because with this system in place, where you're kind of forced to keep some guys either in the taxi squad or in the AHL because you can't have them on your roster because you can't afford it, literally, unless somebody actually gets straight up injured or somebody gets, infected with the virus and you need to call somebody up, you're kind of locking in your roster from day one. Because let's take a look at the Canadiens right now. We've spoken about this a ton, but the Canadiens forward core consists of so many players. Drouin, Suzuki, Anderson, Lehkonen, Kotkaniemi, Toffoli, Tatar, Deneau, Gallagher, and then you have like 6 guys you could realistically thrust into that last spot, including some of the new guys you have, like Corey Perry, Michael Frolik, and then the guys you had before, like Armia, you had Weal, you had Byron. The way things stand right now, if you have yourselves a Canadiens roster with everybody involved, you're over the cap. Straight up, you're not allowed to do that. So, what you need to do is put some of these guys in the AHL or put some of these guys in the taxi squad. But once you do that, and some of these guys that are on the taxi squad are being given AHL salaries, so now you're okay, you can't just call them back. You can't all of a sudden just say, okay, well, this fourth liner had a bad game, let's just bring in the other guy. You're going to have to go through a long process of sending the first guy down and then pulling another guy back in so that the roster actually maintains itself. And the reason you have to do this is because Marc Bergevin confirmed it himself. It's not going to be possible to start the season off with a 23-man roster due to cap space issues. You weren't able to free up that cap space. Take a look at this. This is that tweet from Arpon Basu. Here's a conversation going on afterwards. Is there a minimum amount of players we need to have on the roster on off days? I don't believe so, Basu says, and we've seen situations in the past where the cap forced a team to play a game with fewer than 20 players. Having said that, the taxi squad has a limit of 6 players, including a goalie. And there's only so much yo-yoing they would want to do to the AHL. The Habs could have a 6-player taxi squad with veterans and send Kotkaniemi, Suzuki, Romanov, and Evans directly into the AHL with off days. They would gain a lot of cap space that way, no? Those 4 players would be sent down either to the taxi squad or the AHL on off days pretty much all season. Yes, the advantage of sending them to the taxi squad is they could still practice with the team, but I don't think they could practice if they're technically in the AHL. Arpon Basu also says that when he says sending down waiver-exempt players, he means sending them to the taxi squad, although when the Canadiens are at home, they could also be sent down or papered to the AHL for a day if the taxi squad is full. So this team, to just put everything in layman's terms because we're highlighting how exactly they screwed up, it's too crowded. It's way too crowded. There are too many guys over here who are going to be vying for jobs. It's going to push Claude Julien into making some very difficult decisions as to who he wants to keep on his team full time. Because he's not going to have the luxury to swap guys in and out as he likes, because as guys go in and out, hey, they need to be sent down. They need to be called back up to actually make the cap space work. And the Canadiens cannot trade anybody because Bergevin said it himself, it's not that simple anymore. It never was simple, but it's even more complicated now that you have this flat cap and process. And now teams are going to look at the guys like Byron and say, oh man, $3.4 million. Sorry, Mark, but that's a lot. I don't know if I want to take that on for my hockey team, man. I apologize. And all of a sudden, the assets that you did have are in a position where, yeah, some of these guys are not going to get NHL spots. And maybe in a normal year, they would actually be in the NHL, but you're going to have to make some decisions here. Because at the end of the day, if you're taking a guy like, I don't know, let's say Jordan Wheel, he's making $1.4 million. If we go over to his cap-friendly page, his salary doesn't change if he goes to the minors. He gets 1.5 in the minors, 1.5 with the NHL team. So does that automatically make a guy like Jordan Wheel on the team? Do you stick this guy on the roster because, hey, it doesn't matter if we send this guy down, we'd much rather send somebody else down who would have that benefit of having reduced cap space if he was in the AHL? Let's take a look at Paul Byron. He has an A on his sweater, I know that, but Paul Byron's in a spot where he makes the same amount of money. He makes 2.8 on the team, 2.8 if he's sent down to the minors. Does that mean that he is guaranteed a spot because there's no use in sending this guy down because you don't have any cap benefits? It's weird, right? There's a whole bunch of layers to uncover here with the Canadiens, and a lot of it is because they ended up loading up on all these guys. And I don't want to say that's a bad thing, you know. I really like what the Canadiens did. It's just they did go quite overboard, literally speaking, when you take a look at the cap. But we do have some other quotes here from Marc Bergevin that I did want to go over because I do like these as well. We have internal expectations that are high. We cannot hide from that. He says on his expectations for the Canadiens this season. This is what he said about Corey Perry, talking about his strong playoffs and all that, and why exactly they ended up signing him. Hey, it sends a message to the league and our players that we mean business. We're here to win, and we can play any way you want to play. Bearing injuries, I expect this is the team we will start the season with, Bergevin said, because, hey, you can't add any more guys now. You have so many players. But when it comes to the players we do have, hey, we can guarantee at least one guy who has a spot. It's Tyler Toffoli. The Canadiens have an idea of where he'll line up at the left wing or the right wing this season, but they're going to keep it a surprise until the 13th, Marc Bergevin said when asked not only on Toffoli, but whether Edmondson will play on the left or the right. Bergevin said we can expect him to play both. So, yeah, this is kind of a weird topic, I get that. We're at the end of this video over here, so I appreciate it if you actually made it all the way here. Am I overreacting to this, do you think? Is this as big of a deal as I'm making it appear to be, where this Canadiens team is not able to actually, you know, fluidly proceed throughout their normal day-to-day processes because, yeah, the cap is a little bit flat and they need to move everything around that? Or is this just another minor inconvenience that the Canadiens will just easily walk around as they confront it? Talk to me in the comments what you think. Also, if you made it to the end of the video, comment down in the comment section below Shane McMahon. We're talking about money here, right? So why not talk about the man? Here comes the money himself. I hope you enjoyed this video. So that Troll says 99. And bye.